Hi everybody, Jim Ostrowski with another edition of the Liberty Moving Podcast. So first of all, it's going to be about the book, of course. I just want to thank everybody who's supported the book online. These early days are kind of a big deal in terms of getting some quick sales and getting some quick reviews up and ratings on Amazon. Several people have reached out. One old friend of mine's already read the book. So really want to thank everybody who has supported this 14th book of mine, and in many ways the most important book. But I want to talk today, I'm going to keep this relatively short. I've already said that it's not just a book that, people write these books about like what the problem is and why there's a problem and everything, and then there's hardly ever like a solution. And I just can't do that anymore. The only book that I really didn't have a solution was Political Class Dismissed, because I thought it was just important to put out a series of essays explaining what the problems were, and I wasn't too focused on the solutions, because at that point there wasn't any understanding. Like, what's the political class, Jim? Yeah, it's a common term now. I'm not claiming I coined the term or invented the term, popularized the term, but I think I have actually, certainly for the people who read the book, really clarified that concept. It's a critical libertarian concept. If you don't understand, you're basically clueless. So it's like, what was the point of the solution? The solution was to educate people. But at this point in my life, in my career, in the history of the country, I'm all about solutions. So I want to talk a little bit. This is the affordability book, obviously. Government takes 80%. Pointed out, by the way, just in passing, mention this, that I already pointed out that the Libertarian Party now has a ready-made issue to lead with for their candidates. I don't know what they were talking about before, in all honesty, but this is what they should be talking about: the affordability issue. I already designed a bumper sticker: government takes 80%, vote Libertarian. You've got the slogan, you got the metrics, you got the issue, and it's an issue that as a political consultant advising third-party candidates, I'm always looking for what's an issue that is popular, it's correct, and that the major parties cannot imitate or steal from you. This is perfect. Both parties are implicated in the affordability crisis. You could argue about who's more implicated. It really doesn't matter. The Republican Party has been useless on affordability. They're probably more to blame because they're supposedly the party that's supposed to do something about it. So this issue of affordability is perfect for people who are running as libertarians. And, I would recommend that you get out front of this issue before the Democrats aren't going to steal the issue, because they can't. They have no answers. But some Republicans will steal the issue, so you're competing with them. So, but let me talk a little bit. So at the end of the book, I say, well, what are the solutions? And there's basically there's total of 16 specific solutions. And we'll just talk about them a little bit. I'm not going to belabor them in detail, but then we'll wrap up with, there's really one big solution that sort of encompasses all the others. So as a skeptic on the efficacy of politics, of course, I'm going to lead with direct action solutions. Direct action, if you're not familiar with my views on this, the difference between political action and direct action is that political action is indirect. I mean, it's a strange way of thinking about it, but that's the whole point. of why I came up with these ideas, because nobody else has been thinking about them, or very few people had, or hadn't articulated them in a very coherent manner. So politics is indirect action. I have four different elements of what the term politics means in this context. So basically you have voting, you have supporting candidates, you have lobbying branches of government, and you have litigation, which is kind of like lobbying the courts. So that's politics. What is the common element of all four of these? It's indirect action. You're trying to get somebody else to do something. That's extremely difficult. It's certainly extremely difficult in politics. Again, I talked about the term political class. You're talking to somebody who's making a living being a government official or a government contractor. You're asking them to, in many cases, give up their job, give up their power. There's ideological problems. The people that you're lobbying, they like government. This is a problem I'll allude to right at the end of the podcast. They like government. They think government's a great thing. You're convincing them to pull back from what they fervently believe is true, even though you know and I know it's bullshit. So politics is difficult. That's why I point out many times, and I've rarely challenged on this, certainly not recently. What's the last election that unequivocally caused a increase in liberty across the board for American citizens? And I underscore American citizens. I think it's 1800. Some people, have proposed other dates, and, I think they're quibbling. I really think the last time was 1800. But even if I'm wrong, it doesn't happen very often, and if it happens, it's very marginal. So I'm not asking you to pay a huge amount of money, $10, 2 cups of coffee at Starbucks, for the book, and not give you something to do immediately that doesn't require that you become like a political activist. So that's where the 8 comes in. And they're all, I won't go through them in great detail, but they're all forms of direct action. What's direct action? Well, it should be sort of obvious by now, but I'll explain it because these are new terms for many people. Direct action is what can you do today to advance your liberty in some tangible way, maybe not a gigantic way, but some sort of tangible way to improve and increase your liberty. And that's direct action. So obviously, I pointed this out before, I think the clearest example, the best example, probably the most efficient example of direct action is voting with your feet, where you simply relocate to a different state, county, town, village, school district. The most efficient form, and I'm not talking about leaving the country, that's not something I get into. It's certainly an option at some point. And do I have my own country picked out? I certainly do. What is it? I'm not telling you. I'll tell you after I get there. You'll be the first to know. Hopefully that won't happen. So voting with your feet can produce direct, immediate, tangible benefits in that you can lower your tax rate, lower your rate of regulatory tax, because regulations are kind of a form of taxes, as I talk about in the book. So voting with your feet is what I would suggest. Now, there is a very nice website and study that ranks the states. We kind of know if you're in the movement, if you're in the libertarian movement, you're kind of sort of familiar with this, but maybe you're not familiar because you're not in the movement that long. Freedom in the 50 States by Jason Sorens and his partner, Professor Kruger, I think his name is. And it's pretty clear that, the overall ranking of freedom, New Hampshire leads, Florida's usually second. States like California, New York. Sorry, I'm walking. I'm not drunk or disabled. I'm walking on sort of an uneven surface here. In beautiful Casanova Park. I'm not complaining. I'm just explaining why look like a little wobbly. So you can check out that study. Now, interestingly enough, now that I get this book out, I will be intensively marketing the book, traveling, and so on. But my next big project, I've also got my Second Amendment lawsuit in the works, and it's going pretty well. I'm going to be working on that. But my next big, huge libertarian project is an app called Liberty Moving App. We're going to rank every county in the country. Nobody else has done it, so I'm going to do it myself. Maybe somebody's working on it. I don't know. It's not my problem. It's their problem. So we're going to, hopefully by the end of the year, if you're convinced of that you need to vote with your feet, you'll be able to go to this app. It'll be very inexpensive. Everything I do is inexpensive because I'm a working class guy, and that's how I price things out, so people can afford to use these resources. So we'll have every county in the United States ranked according to a very sophisticated, comprehensive algorithm of liberty, taking a broad view of liberty, defining liberty in a number of different contexts, so that we really don't leave anything out. So you've got voting with your feet. There's there's 7 more. I'm not going to even remember them all, but voting with your health is another one. That will not reap immediate rewards, but really in the medium future, if you start to take care of your health, most of the health problems in the United States are self-inflicted by poor lifestyle, poor diet choices, lack of exercise, and things of that nature. And it's really just another gigantic failure of government, because government's supposedly in charge of health and medicine, and certainly government corrals all our kids in government school for like 13 years, and government school kids come out, eating Twinkies for breakfast. So the government has to bear some responsibility. So voting with your health is another aspect. And we have like a back of the envelope business card, elevator pitch checklist of things. It's so simple, and this is what's frustrating to me. But all I can do is put these ideas out there and hope people start doing it, as I've done. Now here I'm 68 years old. I got no notes. I'm walking through the park. I'm holding a selfie stick that weighs 1.5 pounds. I seem to be in pretty good shape. I think I'm not perfect. I'm really trying to drop a few pounds before my next speech in Canada. But it's not that complicated. No sugar, no wheat. 2 meals a day from scratch, organic or farm bought food, healthy food. Don't snack. Lift some weights, pump some iron a couple times a week, and get some aerobic exercise in. Jump rope, really easy, a couple times a week. There's other things in there we talk. Americans just piss away a lot of money. Let's be honest. And as a libertarian, I'm reluctant to tell anybody what to do. But if I'm writing a book on affordability, trying to explain, how can you cut your costs? Is like Americans buy overpriced cars, overpriced houses. If you're just a little bit more careful on these selections, you can still have your quality of life. You can still live in a safe neighborhood. You don't have, a lot of it's connected with the search for this holy grail of the perfect government school. They don't exist. Don't send your kids to government school in any event. The whole thing is a disaster. I explain that in the book, and I've written 2 books on government schools, so I'm not going to belabor that point now. So there's a bunch of very useful direct action strategies that you can do immediately, and will immediately start to reduce your costs and really improve, particularly on the health front. Immediately you'll start to feel better. You have more energy. I used to when I was a carbo loader, I had no energy in the morning. You couldn't even talk to me. Now I have 2 cups of healthy tea. I make my own concoction. I might market it at some point because it's so great. I want other people to. I don't expect to make any real money off it, but I want to get it out in the marketplace. Great combination of green tea and black tea and chocolate, and there's 0 sugar. It's just delicious. I have 2 of those, and I can walk 3 miles and do a podcast. So obviously what I'm doing is working. But then, so let's talk a little bit about politics. I'm already sort of almost done a lap around the beautiful Casanova Park. I don't want to talk too much, and I'm going to do a couple more of these about the book. I've already got several out there. So the political stuff. The problem with the political stuff, again, it's difficult to change politics, but look, you got an affordability crisis, particularly among young people. Let's go where the money is. It's the payroll tax. There was no payroll tax in 1900. You kept pretty much all the money. There was no income tax. We need to get back to that situation. The payroll tax is about 15% of your income, whether you work or not. The American paycheck is a fraudulent document. A lot of people don't even understand that half of the FICA is technically paid by the employer, and they think, oh, that's nice. Thanks, Mr. Employer, for giving me this free money. No, it's not. It's your money. It's just that the government is the government is forcing your employer to give the government the money instead of you. It's like you're a sap. Like you've been conned. And this is again why I wrote the book. So we got to get rid of the payroll tax. That would immediately jumpstart incomes, and all these people complaining they're living in their cars and can't afford an apartment, all this stuff. They get an immediate huge boost in income. A lot of the regulations involving the employment relationship, they need to go. Unemployment insurance, it's like, again, people think this stuff is free. It's not free. You're paying for it. They say, well, it's a popular program. I said, well, it's not. It's not a popular program. How do you know it's popular? Well, because it's there. No. Do we allow people to opt out? Would you opt out of, if you were given a choice between, I don't know what it costs, but $50 every 2 weeks to pay for unemployment, or do you want that cash? And you know what most people are going to say? I want the cashito. And let's be honest. Many people on unemployment, they suddenly get a job at 6 months. It's like a 6-month paid vacation. It's like you're getting paid to pretend to work. If you want to take a couple months off, fine. In a libertarian society where you're allowed to keep your income, you could do that. You're paying for it yourself. Other people shouldn't pay for your, free vacation. A couple other. Well, I'm almost wrapping up. I'm not going to get into all the details. Frankly, I'm not sure if I even remember all the 8, but they're all in the book. Well, I do remember. So we got to have a free market in trade, and I know it's like protectionism is this religion. It's like all I can say to the people who believe in protectionism: just get another religion, get a real religion, get a religion where some guy died on the cross and got up 3 days later. Get a real religion like that, or one of the other big ones. Protectionism is not a religion, and it's bullshit. It really is. And Rothbard pointed this out. He said, if protectionism is so great at the international border, then we should really do it at the border of states. And then if that's good, why don't we do it at the border of counties? Like, you want to bring some goods into Erie County, New York, where Buffalo is, you have to pay a tariff. And the whole thing is just bullshit. The other thing is, and then I'll talk a little bit about the final factor that I alluded to. The global military empire, this thing is ridiculous. The United States, it's up to $1 trillion. They want to raise it to 1.5 trillion. I don't know the status of that, but it's ridiculous. We haven't been invaded, and people are going to quibble about this, at Pearl Harbor and 9/11. Bullshit. The United States proper has not been invaded by a foreign army bent on conquest since like 1812. If you want to argue with me, fine. You can talk about the Civil War. Yeah, the Civil War. We put the Civil War in a different category. I agree that Lincoln invaded Virginia without legal authorization in April. I understand about the Civil War. I've written 2 massive articles about the Civil War. So don't give me the Civil War stuff right now. Please. Busy. Got to get rid of that. So, but ultimately, basically everything almost everything the government does, the government spends 11 trillion on all levels. Most of it is transfer payments, dressed up, or it doesn't look like redistribution of wealth, but it actually is. We need to get rid of that. But ultimately, here's the big problem. I'll close on this note. The real problem is ideological. It's a thing called progressivism. If you want to know more about that, read my book on progressivism, a primer. Progressivism, as I explain it in the book, it's a political it's a form of therapy masquerading as a political philosophy. It's not a political philosophy. It doesn't make any sense at all. It didn't come from like some philosopher writing some fabulous book that made any sense. It's just an ideology that is very seductive because it convinces the average person that, you know, for any problem that comes along, at least the government's there to final solution. I hate to use that word. The government's sort of the final solver of any problem. And it's bullshit. It doesn't work. But this is the mentality that produces a government that takes 80%. It takes 30% of what you make for taxes, 37% of what you make is destroyed by regulation, war, trade, and the other couple other percentages here and there, inflation. So really the ultimate solution is progressives have to stop being progressives. And until they do, we're never going to solve this problem. And you could say, you know, the odds are we're never going to solve the problem. And say, oh, okay, you know, Jim, you know, wrong again. Well, I'm not wrong. But I've already explained in the book, if we don't solve this affordability problem, we're not going to have a country anymore. And empires don't end nicely. They break apart. There's usually a battle over, you know, boundaries, new governments, they split off, there's civil war. Civil wars can be very nasty. So we either solve this affordability problem, which is really an ideological problem, or the country's fucked. It's very simple. I'm not saying we're going to solve it. I'm just saying if we don't, the country's fucked. You have no control. You can do whatever you want, but you can't avoid the consequences. So on that note, I'm just going to say, as I've said many times recently, problem of affordability is a problem of ideology. And ideology is destiny.